let's try applying this formula once again. Uh, you need to be attached, connected to what's good in your heart and what's good in your mind in order to make a decision. And if you can't do that, you can't make a good decision. You're going to be enslaved to your negative emotions, and eventually you'll be enslaved by your own conscience. Um, and that combines very well, I think, with the notion that in certain circumstances you need compassion, and in other circumstances you need power. What you never need is uh, malignant compassion. Is horrendous, and an evil expression of power, of course, is even worse. It's the difference is how fast it works, probably. Okay, so right now, what they're complaining about, and probably with quite good reason, as far as I can tell, about the unvaccinated showing up in prison. So, oh no, I'm sorry, in prison. They probably do show up in prison, but showing up in the hospitals and interfering with people, getting cancer treatments and heart treatments and that kind of thing. That's Tom Mulcair. I was just reading. A very intelligent person, I think. Um, a woke ideologue in the extreme. Canada has very few politicians or journalists that aren't woke ideologues. I mean, they just don't exist, in my humble opinion. Uh, you've got Gavin McGuinness, but he moved to New York. Um, okay, so what people are saying now, I do believe in a lot of places, is that the unvaccinated should be taxed because of the damage that they're causing to the healthcare system. That's pretty much a free market attitude. I mean, you pay for the damage you cause. Um, and I have to say that there's quite a lot of sense to that. I don't think that it will have much long-term consequence for much of anybody. But I mean, it's not really going to work very well, is it? I don't think. Honestly, I can't believe there's anybody who refuses a vaccine. Um, I think I'd refuse a booster January of 2021. 6 months probably changed my mind. Okay, but if you're going to look at people refusing to do something or doing something and causing damage to the healthcare system, and so you think it would be a good idea to tax those people, well, uh, I think what you want to be doing, and we're doing this already, but apparently not enough, is taxing alcohol. I don't care if the price of alcohol is 90% tax right now. I could care less. You should tax it more. And in particular, what you should do is you should tax expensive alcohol more. If a restaurant wants to sell it at a high price, that's their business. But if it's the Canadian Liquor Board is selling alcohol, and it's expensive alcohol, and people are using it to drink themselves into the hospital where they're going to be on the public dole, that tax should go up. Of course, nobody would say that. Nobody would think of this. Because one right that we definitely hold to is the right to get loaded in one way or another. Um, Cigarettes, I don't care how much they tax cigarettes. Tax it. Okay, so the thing is that if you put a blanket tax on tobacco or a blanket tax on alcohol, then there will be some, shady guys, brewing up some beer in the basement or whatever. Or I think that in Ontario, Aboriginal people have the tobacco market. They don't pay taxes, and they sell just tons and tons, literally tons and tons of tobacco, probably every week. Um, so alcohol, tobacco, and probably the biggest one is sugar. This is, for me, this is absolutely phenomenal. Um, In the United States, I've heard the explanation that well, sugar is controlled by a small number of very powerful people, and they don't want it taxed, so it doesn't get taxed. But sugar is pretty cheap. I mean, look at how much sugar there is around. If you actually wanted to save lives, what you'd be doing is taxing sugar. Is somebody going to supply it outside? So what are they going to do? People are going to be working, setting up an entirely new sugar market. Sugar should be taxed. I don't know, man. If you can buy a pound of sugar for $1 now, that pound of sugar should probably cost you $10. And yeah, bakeries would suffer, and etc. like that. Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true. But if it was really expensive, people would eat less of it, and the tax that you got from sugar you could use to fund the medical system, couldn't you? No, you couldn't, because you can't trust the government with money. Like it just does, it won't work, right? It wouldn't work practically because you can't trust governments to do anything. Um, what my concern right here is just this, you know, sudden enthusiasm people have for taxing the unvaccinated, uh, and they never bother to mention that actually. Uh, and I believe that this is actually true, is that a lot of the unvaccinated are what they like to call people of color, from lower income groups, and a lot of them don't want the vaccination for like spiritual reasons. They have some idea, or there's some idea that they can't trust the government. And for Aboriginal people, I sympathize totally. The government's not sharing information on adverse reactions. I don't trust them either. Um, but yeah, so there's a lot of Aboriginal people and black people that haven't been vaccinated, because they don't have access to information, or because they've got spiritual reasons, or they don't trust the government, and they haven't got any money. So this idea to tax the unvaccinated, you do realize that you're going to be taxing a lot of people that don't have any money, right? Um, the connection to critical thinking facilities here, I think, has, in a sense, just been completely broken. I think so. I don't think that they have a single clue what they're talking about. And they also have no connection. If you have no, and there's certain circumstances, like maybe all of them, if you don't have access to your critical thinking capacity or your ability to deal with basic science, uh, then it doesn't matter what your heart, the opinion that your heart has, or the feeling that your heart has. You're going to have a negative reaction anyway. And it's not like you have to at some point actually start wondering, like, maybe your hearts are just rotten as well. That's the situation with the opioid epidemic. All these people saying, "Oh, we need to be compassionate for these people." Yeah, go on about that, and you know, the situation just gets worse, and you have to wonder: are you motivated by compassion, or what is this? Like, what sort of malignant thing is this? And so a lot of those people would say, well, it should be just completely decriminalized. And I totally agree with that. Okay, so this gets us back around to whether or not you need an expression of power or an expression of compassion. What you need is both. A lot of situations, what you need is both. So a serious addict should have access to, not free, okay, a serious addict should have access to the drugs that he or she needs if he or she is willing to work for it. Just as simple as that. Yeah, okay, I understand. Yeah, just we'll find some work for you to do, right? But if you're just piddling around and you think that cocaine and methamphetamine and heroin are something to do recreationally, and you're not, an addict already, well, then I'm sorry, but some powerful men are going to come around and arrest you and put you in a place where you don't have access to any drugs for a little while. Just a brute expression of force. Because what you would end up with then is a compassionate result, which is less degradation caused by uh, the rampant problems we have with drug addiction. Essentially, what I did was I took two parts of Will Ferrell's story of philosophy, two different pages, and I just took out everything that was in the middle. It's entirely stolen from his book. Uh, I think that this belongs to everyone, but just this is where it came from me. Religious people talk about how you have to be in control of your emotions and all that, or you'll be enslaved. And scientists will talk about the guilt and remorse and how much you'll suffer because of that. So everybody says the same thing, but I'm just like condensing it here. You need to be connected to the best of your critical thinking abilities, the best of your heart, and once you've done that, you can decide whether a given circumstance, the loving response, because loving it is a combination of compassion and power. If I say people who are doing drugs recreationally, the really bad ones, when I say that they need to be just grabbed up and put somewhere they can't get drugs, that's absolutely about power. It's an expression of power. And you can't trust the state with that either, obviously. It's all really extremely complicated, of course. But like if you think that the government can be trusted with attacks from COVID, right? Uh, you're crazy. Um, but ideally, what would happen, and we know this because from so much experience with drugs, ideally, like in Taiwan, there's no drug problem. Why is there no drug problem? Because people aren't oriented that way, and because drugs here are a serious thing. If you got caught selling heroin or something like that in Taiwan, well, I remember when they used to be the death penalty. They'd warn you if you're trying to smuggle drugs into Taiwan and you get caught, then you get the death penalty. That was very clear. It's the first thing they told you. So that's today's philosophy exercise.